What for about an hour, and then we got serious about our financial situation. And in Colorado, it's not California, but housing still isn't cheap. And our mortgage was $276,000. We had about $30,000 in credit card debt, about the same in student loans, 2 car loans, and I had a shoe addiction, and it wasn't for the sale rack. I still have that addiction, but now I shop the sale rack. My husband at the time had a 401k, but he wasn't putting a penny into it, and I was saving a very sexy $35 a month in my school retirement account. I know, you guys are excited. I was on my way to financial freedom. I really was. Unfortunately, the advisor that I had through my school district never asked to sit down with my husband and I together. In fact, she never asked how much money he made. And ironically, he made about 4 times a year what I did, because in the state of Colorado, teachers don't make money. And so I learned something the moment that WFG came to our home and sat with us. They talked with us about how much money we were making, but more importantly, how much money we were spending versus saving. Because that really isn't something that we're taught in our schools today, and I can vouch for that. I've taught at 3 different universities teaching mathematics and high school. It's not part of the curriculum. And if it's not taught in your home, I promise you, no one else is going to teach you except WFG. And so after thank you. After WFG came and sat with us, they came back about a week later with a plan, and they had showed us the importance of utilizing life insurance inside of our retirement strategy. Now, unfortunately, at the time I was a 3-year breast cancer survivor, insurance companies didn't like me. Most of them still don't like me today. My pathology is pretty poor. However, my husband was insurable, and we were taught how to put a sizable amount of money away inside of that insurance policy to not only protect him, but also accumulate wealth as well. We also started putting money inside of an emergency fund. Now, I want you to understand, several years went by, and we were very excited about the financial path that we were on. We were lessening our debt, we were saving money, and we knew if something happened, we would be okay. So 3 years later, we were pregnant with our first little munchkin, and while most people are very excited about planning a room for their baby, picking out colors, choosing names, Peter and I instead were visiting a neurosurgeon. If I could have my first slide, please. So we were out visiting a neurosurgeon because Peter was having severe back pain that was affecting his legs as well. And I remember the moment we walked into the neurosurgeon's office and he asked Peter to take a few steps, and he struggled. And the doctor started rattling off all of these crazy medical words. And after the first one, I kind of blocked him out, going, "You're not looking at me. I'm 6 months pregnant. This stuff doesn't happen to real people." And I remember going, what the heck is going on? It's not like it's cancer, right? How many of the room have ever had to say that before? It's not like it's cancer. Next slide, please. We had our dream home. We were pregnant with our child. We were planning a future together, and instead we were sitting there wondering, how much time are we possibly going to have together? After a series of tests throughout the day, we found out that there was this large mass in Peter's chest that was pushing on the outside of his lungs, but the doctors weren't afraid of that. They were actually afraid of a much larger mass that had wrapped itself around his spinal column that was causing so much pressure that he could start to lose feeling in his legs and feet. They gave us 2 options. The first one was, we can radiate this gigantic mass on your spine, but unfortunately we don't really know what it is, so we don't really know what we're dealing with. The second option is to go into surgery to hopefully unwrap this mass that's wrapped itself on your spine to relieve the pressure and give us a sizable sample to figure out what it is that we're dealing with. We opted for the 5-hour surgery. We spent the next 2 weeks in a rehab facility waiting for pathology. In the day, the doctors tell you you have a very rare, aggressive cancer and it's stage 4. The treatment's going to be very intense, and if you've ever considered having more children, you need to think about doing something about that today, because the treatment will most likely leave you sterile. What a blessing that the Lord had given us that pregnancy during that time, because I don't know if we would have been able to conceive afterwards. As most people think that's a devastating time in your life, you have to remember the people sitting across the table from you don't ever think this is going to happen to them. But I remember Peter looked at me and he said, "I am so sorry we don't have more life insurance." These are the real stories of the real people that we sit across the table from. But they don't talk about it because they can't fathom it. Next slide, please.